It's a high school course, but they usually, if you're in a rush, don't.
Everybody has to scroll. I mean, we're not driving, we're playing. Whatever.
Yeah, I know. No,
Yeah.
actually, Bill's driving with, season camera.
I mean, if you wanna just
You wanna go
turn
half and
bright
half.
red,
Yeah.
and like more red than I already am, and
Oh, no, maybe not.
I
Keep looking at different.
mean, I'll
If you log
probably
in, then-
cool down in about 20 minutes.
I'm not part of their Discord.
Maybe
and
not,
I'm
I don't know.
unsubscribed.
Like, unsubscribe.
Alright, we are live.
Oh, no, my pencil's like, I was like, please unsubscribe.
She's just logging in once.
Yeah, so maybe, probably, it depends too, like, so we don't have the big, like, we don't put in events, like, at the end of like the 23rd, 24th, but then
That working?
Garrett will probably be teaching again, and his class will be one of those.
No, it's like.
And your kids will be in school.
I don't care about it.
No, I'm saying you should go.
I can see.
So
I
I and
should
Lynn will be
just
there. Bill said, how many minutes is supposed to be taking on this road trip? And then I said, unsubscribe.
That was my special request, it was like, they just came out for that.
No, that is true. I am the first person to request. Well, it helps trying to keep minutes and then actually see what is happening. Two different screens.
You were in there, weren't you?
Yes,
Try
I
one,
did.
get the
Share
video
it.
shoot.
Yeah.
I think everything is individual, right? There's something special.
You did.
Yeah, but
This, just the bar.
Just the
Alright,
yes.
okay, she got it.
But it's here too, so.
Okay.
All right, hang on, what time? Ready to call.
Alright, at this point, we're gonna call to order the special board meeting at 6:31 p.m. And we'll begin with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, proof of new vote notice.
Notice was given.
And no virtual participation area is here. And as of right now, there are no public comments. So the next piece on the list is the board reorganization. So we're going to begin with reorganization of the board as required by our board policy 151.1 and board policy 152, as well as state statute 120.05. So this takes place annually within 30 days of the fourth Monday in April. Nice, good date. So appreciate everybody making it here. We had to make some things shift around to make sure we had it all in person for this piece, and I'm glad we're all here, so thank you for that. This portion is to elect officers to the position of president, vice president, treasurer, and clerk. Officers are elected by the majority vote and board members present. Confidential ballots may be used as permitted under Wisconsin state law. So before we begin, just a quick how this works. Nominations do not require a second. They do require a confirmation that yes, you do want to be in that role. All nominations are for office will be taken before any vote begins. If only one nomination is made, the board can do a closed process and cast unanimous vote or by roll call. If there is more than one nomination, we use a confidential ballot to and collect those and see who advances to the second round. Voting continues until one nominee receives a majority of the board members present. Are there any questions on that process?
What position? I said president, vice president, clerk, and is there another? Treasurer.
Yeah. All right, so we would then begin this process with president. So are there any nominations for president?
I'll nominate Adsit.
I'd like to nominate Matt Schwab.
All right, so because they're, I should say I already pulled nominations. You okay with that?
Yes, sorry.
No, keep it all right. All right, so do we have a,
I got him.
thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sure it's the right one. I can grab the two files.
And since we're in it, would you mind calling the process?
Thank you.
Do you want me just to read them individually or just tell you the number?
And whatever you like, it doesn't matter. I think for this, you just have to catch whatever the result is.
Okay. 3 for Chris Adsit, 2 for Matt Schwab.
All right, so with the majority, Chris Adsit is elected president of Hartland-Lakeside School Board.
Okay. Per the policy, at this point, the president takes over for the meeting. Thank you, Chris, for starting the meeting. Okay, the same The same process continues for the other positions. We'll continue with vice president. Are there any nominations for vice president?
I'll nominate Chris Hagelin.
I would nominate Matt McNulty. I think it's a good role. To observe and be able to hold it all. New stuff coming in.
I'm giving double duty.
Thank
you. Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Thank you. And Chris, it's up to you if you want me to kind of do a roll. Is that okay? I'm guessing.
You've got the big screen, so I'm gonna let you.
Thank you. And I will continue with this. Thanks.
Alright, we've got 3 for Matt, 2 for Chris.
Moving on to the office, the position of treasurer. Are there any nominations for treasurer?
I'll nominate Matt Schlug since he's already done it. Did you want it again? Sorry.
Are there any other nominations?
Be a tough one.
Hearing none, does the board wish to do confidential or roll call? If there are no objections, we'll do a roll call vote. Matt?
Vote for myself.
Yes.
Matt.
Schwab. And Schwab.
Something in a row, I love that.
Okay, moving on to the final officer position. We're accepting any nominations for clerk.
I'll nominate Chris Hagelin.
Accept.
Are there any other nominations?
No, thank you.
Okay, then.
I'm just gonna take my name out right away.
We'll do it through roll call vote again. Matt?
Hagelin.
Chris?
Chris H.
Hagelin. Chris Hagelin.
Would you like me to take it over from here?
Like that, that would be wonderful.
I feel like now I have to.
But I can do it, I've got it up in governments.
Okay.
It's totally up to you. But I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Well, I have to do it, I'll let you know next time.
It's okay. Okay. Moving on, we'll go into the committees, WASB delegate, and CISA one. We'll start with committees. So per policy 0155, the president appoints the committees. And so I will ask if you will accept the appointment. What I'd like to see is Matt and Morgan on finance. Both of you have strong financial backgrounds and advocated for that during the campaign, so I think that would be natural. Matt has done an amazing job with it so far. So for the last year, and knowing that we're gonna have a transition in the business office, I think it would be amazing to have you still there. So if you two would accept.
Sure.
Great. And then Chris Hagland and Matt McNulty for policy. Would you two accept?
Yes. I would accept.
Just 1 second. Okay, CISA 1 representative. So for the new members on the board, the CISA 1 is like a shared services position for all the different districts. And we would have a person that would go and represent the district for that group. Did you do that
That was
last year?
our last year, yeah.
You want to give kind of an overview of what it was and how much it was?
No, it was one meeting that you really had to be part of. You're a part of the email chain and filling that out. The schools use CISA 1 for some educational things, and services with teachers, trainings. But the meeting is really just a get to know the other districts. We vote as in the same district as Arrowhead. You vote for a nomination or for a group leader. And then they.
For what?
Sorry, for your group leader for this area. So unlike most schools, they have their own vote. Ours is a combined vote with all the other feeder schools as well. So it's a little bit different there, which can be told and help put their board together for their upcoming year.
And Eric was our representative, right?
Yes, Eric was our representative this year.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. He did a good job last year. I saw him a couple of presentations and he did a really nice job. He did a good job. Does anyone have a burning desire to do that?
When's the meeting? Do we have that?
I do not have it. I do not know what it is. Any chance you know if it's been established? I do not have it. Chris, would you like to continue it?
Depending on the date, yes, I can. I just remember it coming up really soon.
Okay.
I think I have one conflict, so I'll have to double check it.
Because I believe we do have to have physical presence for that, right? Yeah.
Did we switch it around last year just?
Amy wasn't able to make it.
That's what it was, yeah. So hopefully, if we run into an issue, if the meeting is not before the 19th, we can always switch it up on the 19th.
Let's just figure it out, see what.
Yeah, see what the date is. Okay.
5/21. So that's last time.
5/21.
That was last year, sorry.
Oh,
I don't have it this year.
okay. Well, we'll leave it as Chris for now, and if there isn't conflict, then if worst case scenario, we have to reassign a new person, we can't call a special meeting. We'll do a virtual quick meeting to just assign the person. Okay, and then the last position is the WAS delegate. We can do that, but at the moment, that contract was not renewed after June. So the person would be in name for between now through June, unless the board takes different action to remain or continue the membership within the WASB.
And what does that delegate do?
So the delegate position, I kind of adopted it last year from, I think it was Amy Harker-Murray had it. And you go to the main meeting at the state convention in January and you vote on resolutions.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah, there's a policy and that, so it's kind of weird because I was in two different times. There's the policy and resolution committee that reads all the resolutions submitted through the WASB throughout the year. And then they whittle them down to make sure they're relevant for the assembly. And then districts send their delegate or have the option for their delegate to go. Boards would vote ahead of time on resolutions to support or not support. And then that delegate goes and votes for the district for the WASB. And then the outcome of that is the WASB will lobby for whatever the outcome is that the delegates decide.
But this is a moot point since you didn't wanna be in it anymore?
Well, we voted in the last
Right.
session to remove ourselves, or not remove, but to not renew our contract
Right.
for the upcoming year. We're still technically members through, I believe it's June, right, Amy? Through June. So we could have it to have somebody in name and place, but it's really irrelevant at this point, so.
I just say we don't find anybody, if it comes up and it's we do it.
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, that takes care of number 6, moving on to the board calendar. Pull that up. Amy, I'm imagining you guys put that together for us and it's all consistent. I did review, it's all the same. It's the third Monday of each month. Does the board have a problem with that, or is that okay again for the year?
Can I make a motion to reschedule January so it's not on a non-school day? This year you guys rescheduled it, so.
December 15th?
January 19th.
Sorry. I thought you said December.
No, I'm sorry, I mumbled.
No, that's Martin Luther King.
Right.
So yes, you can.
Do you need me to restate it?
Do we have to do a formal motion on something like this?
You want us to vote?
Yes, we should, because we have a pending attached meeting minutes or meeting dates scheduled, so we should have a motion just to
Discussion.
Move it forward today, Tuesday.
Yeah, I motion to move the Monday, January 19th, 2026 meeting to Tuesday, January 20th, 2026.
Second.
Are you kind of help keeping this order? Say 2:20. All right, we're in discussion. I'd like to motion to amend the motion to the 21st, substitute it to the 21st. I have a obligation on Tuesday evenings that I can't make it.
Second that one.
Any discussion on that? All right, the motion on the floor is to amend the first motion to move the school board date from the 20th to the 21st. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is amended to now vote on moving the meeting to the 21st. Is there any, I think it's a discussion, is there any last discussion?
You don't see any, I'm sorry.
Okay, hearing none. Votes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So just a second. The meeting regularly scheduled for January 19th, 2026 has been moved to Wednesday, January 21st. Right.
We just approved one date, or did we approve the whole?
No, I think the motion was to move that date.
Yeah, that date.
So if we want to approve the whole thing, we need a motion to approve the whole thing.
Motion to approve the 2025-2026 board meeting calendar, the amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries to approve the modified school district board meeting calendar.
But that's approved, the June meeting isn't on there, what's our June date?
This is next year, so this year through June.
June
Are-
16th.
Is it June 16th?
That's what's on the website.
You're asking for this June?
Yeah, like 2 months or whatever. It's more than-
Yeah, I don't think it should. I still have it as a 16. All right, let me go back. Too many screens. It's really hard to try to get rid of old clerk duties. All right, now we go into the discussion on the 25-26 open enrollment seats. I'm guessing that will be presented by anyone?
Well, Maureen is here to help answer any questions. Maureen actually works on the open enrollment, but you will see as your attachment, what we had approved for open enrolled seats. In the blue header column, you will see the applications we received. So anyone, that fits within that proposed number and the applications received will receive information from Maureen that they have been accepted. Anyone who is over that number, will go on a wait list.
Just to clarify, every year open enrollment, they're already open enrollment. And file it every year for open enrollment.
They do not have to file every year. Maureen, do you wanna speak to?
No, they only have to file it once, that's the way our district has it. So once they're in until they leave.
Those
And
numbers.
what about out?
Well, same with that,
So
once they
those-
open and roll out, they are open and rolled out, unless if, like Waukesha, I know Waukesha, when you move from school to school, they do make you open and roll again, but, we don't. I mean, anybody who goes out, we automatically let them go because we can't hold them.
What are we asked to approve? Like, for example, 4th grade, we advertised 5 seats, it looks like we have 6 applications. Is the suggestion that we only send out 5 accepts, or can we accept 6 if we want to?
At this time, you can only approve what was approved by the board, but Maureen, do you wanna explain the process for those that are over that number?
Yeah, so what happens is, we will do a lottery on that. And we do give preference to kids that have a sibling here already. It's not a guarantee when they open enroll. But if there is somebody that has an IEP, we do not have any special education seats. So they will automatically get denied. But for anybody over the amount of, so we have 5 seats and we have 6 kids. So five will get an automatic approval, and then the other one will get put on a wait list. And then if the board decides to take more students, then July 1st, we can send out an approval to that person. Or once the first set says either yes or no. So if
Right.
somebody
Somebody
says,
says no.
somebody says no, then I can send that one out.
I get that. If tonight we said, hey, one more kid, can we just give yeses to all 6? If
You still
not,
have to wait until July, because we already put the seats out, so you can't extend your seats until July. You can extend them tonight, but you cannot give them out until July 1st.
can we extend them at a later date? So if we decide we'll just say, yep, well, everybody up to the cap will accept tonight, could we come back in 2 weeks when we find out that, we didn't get enough?
You're better off doing it now, because if you do that, then a letter has to go out to them saying we have no wait list.
The only reason I look at it is like, the 4K, we advertised for 5 seats, we got 14, right?
Yeah.
And like, those are kids, they start here at 4K, they're more likely to stick here through 5K and through the first. I'd love to extend that, given that we asked for 20 in kindergarten, we got 4. So is there like teacher movement you could do to fill those seats and open another 4K class?
Well, our 4K enrollment is low, so you could take all of them.
We can't tell them until
Our
July
district,
1st.
correct.
Because we only approved 5 initially.
But if somebody would call, you know, they know they're on the wait list, so chances are, what I always say is, if you're on a wait list, we have never turned anybody away, if they would call me.
Do we know if we went back? Because right now we only have 2 4K teachers that are doing the twos.
We have 5 sessions, for classes, am I saying that right? So, cause it's morning, afternoon.
Yeah, oh, okay, that's right, we only have 1 okay, and are we going to 3 and 3?
No, so it was 4 for this year, we moved it to 4.5, hoping that our enrollment will go up.
Okay, so it's only 4.5.
It's been 4.5 for a while now.
We dropped it this year because numbers were so low.
Yeah, this year we're only at 4.
I just don't see any spot where accepting extra, it looks like 1 extra kid in 4th grade, 3 in 6th grade, and 2 in 7th, if I'm following this correctly. Yeah, I don't see a reason not to try to get those 5 extra kids, or whatever that number looks like.
So I'm curious if if we're listed on the first column, does that mean that's like their first choice they want?
You can assume that.
Okay, so I mean, there's a lot of the 6th graders that
Have other schools.
schools first, so chances are they'll say no.
So the reason I always ask Amy or Tina or who's ever in those positions to bring up a meeting right away is because the sooner you get the letters out, the sooner they are to say, yes, I want to come to your school.
Sure.
So you just never know. They can pick up to 3 schools.
Okay.
So it doesn't, you assume that because they put you first, you assume you're first, but that doesn't necessarily mean you are. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're 3rd if you're the 3rd one on the list.
Okay.
So the action tonight would be 1, approve up to the cap, and 2, if we want to open up additional seats to authorize that somehow.
Well, you've already approved the cap. The cap's already approved.
So,
We wouldn't be able to accept them more until we said July.
No, you can accept them tonight.
No, the cap, up to the cap, but if we wanted.
No, so tonight what you're really doing is, so when you set the seats in January, at the January board meeting, this is the seats I can send letters to and say, we have accepted you.
Correct.
So tonight, what you need to do is say, we're gonna open as many seats as we can get. So that I can send the rest of them a letter stating, you are on a wait list. You're approved on a wait list.
Okay.
And in my position, I would suggest you do that, because we do have enough space.
That's, and are the classes right sized to accept those?
Yes. Especially at the middle school, we have plenty of space.
And I just worry that if we get to that point, where it's just a couple or few too many, then you have to open up another class, then it's a detriment versus a benefit.
Yeah, I don't know that we're at that point right now.
Not right now.
No, especially because our 4K, I would think it'd be more at our 4K level, and our 4K is low.
Okay, so if we were to approve all of the applications in for tonight, we would not have to add more staff.
We wouldn't add any staff at this point.
Okay.
Even with the kindergarten, having that bigger number, Maureen did tell me we do have some more in-district kindergarten staff or students, so that will close that gap as well.
Okay. That was the only question I had, was for the right size of the classrooms, that if it was gonna push us over the threshold.
At this time,
Any further discussion or questions on the open enrollment seats? If not, would anyone like to make a motion for the board status on open enrollment seats?
I will delete this right.
Try to wordsmith it.
I'll make a motion to approve the applications received.
There you go.
That's sufficient?
Sure.
Perfect.
I will second. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the open enrollment applications received. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries to approve the received applications for the open enrollment. Okay. Moving on to the 25-26 employee benefits.
Yes, so we have Matt and Dave here from Cunningham Butler. So earlier in the year, the board approved changing brokers. They have done some great research and some plan design for us that Matt is going to present on.
Alright, can everyone hear me all right?
Sure can.
Okay, cool. Matt Chadwick, VP at Cunningham Butler, alumnus of Hartland-Lakeside. So it's good to be back in Stockton. So we got a presentation here. Dave Miller is a client consultant here on the team as well. So he and I, and then too many to count back in the home office, really helped put some of this stuff together. We did a lot of work over the last couple months on this. So got a bit of a presentation. I know that went out beforehand. I'm assuming you went through, or some of you went through some of this. Really, meant to be, if you have any questions, please pause me, ask away, do my best to answer everything that comes up. But I think we have a pretty decent story to tell. So number one is when we met in November, I believe of last year, and then when the decision was made, the conversations between Amy, Tina, Becca, it was really some of these fold of what you wanted to accomplish with the healthcare. One of it was manage the benefits spend in lieu of the overall projected budget shortfall. So understanding that there were financial pressures that we're going to hit the district and operate the benefit plan to assist or with that in mind. The second one was to implement some sort of technology that's going to increase the efficiency for the business office for the people who operate the health plan at no or limited financial impact to the district. As of now, enrollment is done via Google Docs and paper. So all that, any changes that people make, it's on Google Docs and paper, and everything is individually sent to the different carriers, looking for a way to enhance that. Third was to enhance the communication piece on how people are presented, the benefits, in which manners they're presented, and then maintain, or where we could, enhance the overall benefit package by looking at different opportunities that are there. So those were the four main goals that we took. In terms of what we looked at and tried to accomplish on the medical plan, we did a full marketing effort. Every insurance carrier, fully insured, self-funded, HMO versus large PPO network, we looked at. And we narrowed it down through conversations with Amy, Tina, and Becca in terms of what was least disruptive to potential people, and then what the overall cost impact might be, to essentially 4 options. Now, there were close to a dozen different options that we looked at, but these were the 4 that kind of made the final cut. So the 3 that you can see up top is really around United Healthcare. So there's the option of renewing with the current United Healthcare plans, the plans that you have currently offered to your population, with no change to the plan design outside of what the IRS dictated on the HSA. Option 2 is to renew under the UHC umbrella, but with a plan design change, which would be somewhat impactful to the members who were enrolled in that plan. And then the third one was to renew with UHC, but utilize a different style of network, which they call Nexus. The Nexus ACO is what UHC offers this. And that would have some disruption as well. I go into more detail later on. And then the fourth one is the most, I wouldn't say intriguing, but but it's one that we all felt that had to be brought to the board's attention, which was network health plan. Now, what's not listed on here is the fact that we really took a look at the Anthems, the WPSs, Centivo, which I know a lot of other feeder districts look to go to. We looked at Dean, we looked at Ports, which are these HMOs based out of Madison that have come further east. So we've looked at several of these different options. What we looked at, obviously, was cost of the district as well as employees, the provider network, so the docs that and hospitals that people can go to, and then what the plan designs are. So there's a lot of information here. Essentially, what we have in front is 4 options, and they go in the order that we talked about. So the first one was the UHC renew as is. UHC initially came out with an 18% renew. Through negotiations and some other conversations, we were able to get them down to about 12.5%. For context, overall medical trend, especially in this part of the state, is around 10%. They'll say anywhere between 9 and 11% for this upcoming year. There's a lot of reasons for that. So 12.5% is what UHC came down to. That would be an increase when you include employee and employer contributions of about $266,000 just on that plan, assuming no plan design changes. Option 2 is renew with a different UHC plan. What this would do is it would increase the HSA coinsurance on the HSA plan from 10% to 20%. And then out-of-pocket maximums for the employees who are on that plan would also look to increase by $500 for a single, $1,000 for a family. That overall increase would go from 12.5% down to 10.1% is what that option would look like. The third option is renewing with UHC, but under the Nexus network. Now this creates a little more disruption than the previous one. And you can see in the chart that's below there, it would create multiple tiers. So there's an element of confusion that sometimes happens with that, where right now your people are used to, as with many employers, to have an in-network panel of providers and an out-of-network panel of providers. What Nexus does is it attempts to have essentially 2 separate in-network and out-of-network. So it becomes a 3-tier system. So you will have multiple tiers for the HSA plan and the regular traditional plan. But tier 1, which would be considered your lowest cost share tier, would exclude ProHealth. And ProHealth is a very large network or a provider system that your members use. So there would be some disruption. There will also be pricing differences between tier 1 and tier 2, even though they're both in network, which I've seen lead to some confusion of saying my doc's in network, why am I paying more than this tier 1? That though comes out to and there's some other stuff too that we can talk into, but it may force members to change their providers. It may say, hey, you were with ProHealth, now you should go to Medical College or Aurora or someplace like that. So there is some changes that happen to that, but the overall cost of that is about a 1% increase, or about $23,000. The fourth option is probably the most, not probably, it's definitely the most impactful, and that is network health plan. So network health plan is a 14% reduction over current. Okay? Now what network health plan is, it's an insurance company that is owned by Medical College of Wisconsin and Freiburg. So what they do is very similar to what a lot of Madison insurance companies do. They have in-network benefits to their own providers and exclude the other providers. So this would tier and this would drive many people away from the Auroras and away from the ProHealth just to Freiburg and Medical College. There is a transitionary period that would allow some people to continue to go to those providers that would eventually be excluded. But the overall stated goal of network health plan, and I think it's important to be transparent on this, is to eventually get the entire population to go to Freiburg Medical College of Wisconsin as their primary care and for all their care. So there is a range of least disruptive to most disruptive that are on here. Any questions on this so far?
Does the network health include children's since
Yes.
it's Freighter? Okay,
Yes.
so it's all three of them.
All of these will include children's. Most, areas that have a children's hospital are not gonna have an exclusion, even if you are in Dean and Madison, and the children's hospital there is actually connected to UW Hospital, Dean will still be able to have access to children's. I think for context, the thing that we wanted to add here was a chart that kind of showed where your people were actually going for care. So what you'll see is this orange area, that is current freighters, and then purple is Aurora, and green is everything else. And you can see to the chart to the left, the largest dollar amount is Pro Health at $261,000 paid. That's really where the majority of your people are already going. So again, least disruptive to most disruptive, the Pro Health piece and the freighter piece, the Pro Health piece and the Aurora piece, those are probably the most common if you look at this chart of where your people are going in current care. Questions on this?
Just curious what it looks like on your chart. Pro Health is a bigger dollar amount than the other. Why is it green? Why does Aurora get its own color and Pro Health doesn't? It's just choice of authorship, or is there something?
Choice of authorship.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it was essentially just choice of authorship of how we were doing this, because it's really the two main, Aurora and Freighter are the ones that typically tend to fight, and they're the lion's share of overall market share in the country, or in this area. So Pro Health is third, it just happens to be where
It
you're
just
located.
happens to be our biggest.
Yeah, it just happens to be your biggest.
But if I'm looking, the Pro Health box would be bigger than the orange box.
Yes.
Got it.
Absolutely.
So I don't know Pro Health very well. Is Pro Health, so I know Freighter's hospitals are two lines, and then they're like primary cares are the FMLH.
Mm-hmm.
Is this just hospitals, or would this be primary care?
These are all locations.
Okay, so
you're
does
gonna
Pro
see-
Health divide theirs out like Freighter does?
So you have, if it's within the Pro Health bucket, you have the hospitals, and it's
Okay.
not always gonna be, so you're gonna have some primary care stuff and potentially some clinic stuff. All of this is really dependent on billing code. So whenever they send the billing code, there is a identified billing code. Now, whether or not that is associated with a particular doctor versus a location, that's where this usually falls.
Matt, question for you on the previous slide when you were showing the costs. This is before some of those other potential cost saving measures.
Yes.
Would be.
Yes, this is the assumption of the same people who are enrolled today
Nothing changed.
maintained in the same plans and the same tiers. So it's an apples to apples as best it can be, knowing that there's gonna be obviously some movement with enrollments and with things like that.
Just to confirm, that nexus, there will be a tier of Pro Health, there's just one that wouldn't be.
Yes, the way that, so tier one would essentially be, and Dave told me to this, but tier one is gonna be Freighter Aurora. And children's, and then tier two would be Pro Health and some of the other standalone systems. And then tier three is out of network, which the United network is 99% of all available. We'd have some mental health is usually one that's typically out of network for a lot of groups. Ambulatory usually doesn't cover network contracts, but it would be a delineation between network health plan and, between Pro Health and the other two systems. But again, Pro Health is your largest.
So you decided, is it two to choose from, or is it a tier system when you go into them,
It's
it's
a
different pay
tiered
rates?
system.
Okay, perfect.
It's a tiered system
So you could cut the cost by saying, okay,
to make the adjustment.
current one's a tier two, so let me save some costs and find a tier one.
Yeah.
But not premium price.
Not premium price.
Give the difference between the co-insurance amounts and the pocket amounts between tier one and two.
I don't know if we included that in here, but we can get that.
I'm just curious if it's a big number or if it's a small number.
It's usually about a 10% differential, but I don't know if we can, yeah, if you wanna pull that
Yeah,
up.
can you go for it?
You can keep going on
Yes.
this. Okay. Okay, so as we were going through this, the original conversation of minimal disruption, knowing what's happening, one of the things that we talked about was, obviously what was budgeted and what we were told was a 15% overall increase. So the 12.5% underneath the budgeted 15%. And our thought, as we were having these conversations with least disruptive, but then there was a strategy that we had talked about back in November that would help mitigate some of that cost increase. So the two things that we were talking about leading up to this were, if what was important to the district and the board here was to have least amount of disruption possible, then renewing as is at the 12% or 12.5% would be the least amount of disruption, as well as being under what the projected budget would be. In addition to that, what we thought was, and one of the strategies that we had, was the implementation of something called the Family Advantage Health Plan. Now, some of you were around when I presented this back in November, but some of you are new. They obviously love it, okay? They were very big fans of the Family Advantage Health Plan. But just as a reminder, what the Family Advantage Health Plan is, think of it as a spousal HRA. So the deal that the district makes with a individual is saying, hey, you can still, if you are currently enrolled on our plan, and it's really only for the people who are currently enrolled on your plan. If they say, if you are currently enrolled on our plan, but you have access to another group-sponsored health plan, so it's usually a spouse's health plan, or if you are a dependent child, it is maybe your parents' health plan or something like that. It is not Medicare, it is not the individual marketplace, it is not TRICARE. But if you have access and you choose to enroll into that plan, the district will pay 100% of all of your deductible copay and coinsurance amounts. So you will essentially have a $0 deductible and 100% plan. In addition to that, we as the district are going to give $50 in payroll bonus per member per month. So if you're a family of 4, it's $200 a month that we will give to you by enrolling into your spouse's plan. In 99% of cases, maybe not 99, high 90% of cases, it is a spouse's plan that people enroll into. Okay?
One question on
Please.
the payment of deductibles, co-pays, and that, is that just for the employee here, or is that for everybody else?
It's the employee and the members of their family that they enroll in. Okay? So, there's some a little bit of information here, kind of what we talked about. There is math on why this works. If you think about a family of 4 who's on your plan today, the total premium per month is around $2,300 per month on average, right? And then you have potentially some HSAC, and if you take out even what the contributions are, you as the district are paying, because it's fully insured, $20,000 about per year for a family of 4. So the cost to do this, to reimburse the people their deductibles, copays, coinsurances, to pay this bonus, to administer this plan, is going to be less than that $20,000. And it's a range. So the risk is minimal, because if no one takes this plan, it's voluntary. If no one takes this plan, you don't pay anything. But if someone does take this plan, then what you're trading is a fixed cost to United Healthcare in exchange for a variable cost, which based on ACA rules, there's a limit as to how much those people can pay out of pocket every single year. So what this range does in this chart over here is an estimate on what the net savings would be based on the number of families that would take this plan. And right now you have about 60 or so families or of your employees who are on some sort of family coverage. The unfortunate reality is not everyone's going to be truly eligible for this, but if you got, say, 6 families to say, you know what, this sounds kind of good, I'm going to jump on my spouse's plan, and even though they have a $6,000 deductible, it's going to be bought down to 0. Even if by reimbursing the claims, the expected claims, and paying the bonus, that number of 6 comes out to about $81,000 a year for the net cost savings. So it would be that $260,000 that we talked about earlier on to renew as is, by getting 6 members, that drops down by $80,000. So we're down, pretty significant amount, and it's not at the expense of, higher deductibles or higher cost share or higher co-pays or narrower networks or things like that. So we've run this with several different districts, and on average, and not just districts but employers and public sector, really we created it because of the public sector. Because for years, everyone who had a chance to jump on a public sector school district plan, they did it, right? And you just insured way more people than the average group that was 100 employees. So what their numbers are, for our analysis, our numbers really come out to the net savings on this is between $9,000 and $11,000 per person, per family, per year that takes advantage of this plan. Okay? So when we looked at it in twofold, it was a continuation of what you currently have. In addition to that, it was offering this voluntary program that people could take advantage of. And if they took advantage of it, the reward that they would get would be no deductibles, no co-pays, no co-insurance. Every time they go to the doctor, they'd have a debit card and they could swipe. Or they could pay directly.
Person.
What was that?
It's only for the single person, correct?
No, it's for, if I'm a family of 4, my whole family would get it. So if I was an employee here, and I got 3 kids at home and a wife, and my kids love the emergency room. And if I moved to my wife's plan, brought my whole family here, my wife and then all 5 of us, all our deductibles, co-insurance, co-pays, all of it would be paid. Because there is ACA limits as to what the maximum out-of-pockets are per year for a single and for a family, right? So whether or not I have a family of 5 or I have a family of 15, my limit is still what it is.
And there's also options that if, in Matt's case, let's say his wife's employer says, you can come over, and the kids can come over, but Matt can't because you have insurance. We can just take the spouse and the children over.
Yep. If there's a working spouse provision or a spousal carve-out that the other employer has, it says, hey, Matt, because you have coverage to your employer, you are not eligible for our coverage. Okay? I can move all my kids and my wife over there, and then they get the advantage of that.
What does that do for your $50 bonus?
It's on 4 instead of 5.
Oh, okay, it's a perfect, I forgot about that.
Yeah, in that case, $200 a month.
And you had said that not everyone truly qualifies? Is it, like, what did you mean by that?
So you're gonna have some situations where maybe it's a single person who's 28 years old, right? And they don't have another employer-sponsored plan that they can enroll into. They're not gonna qualify for that. And you're maybe gonna have some person who could enroll, but is currently waiving your plan and is already on their spouse's plan. Well, they've already made kind of the decision at some point to be like, hey, we would rather have this plan than the Hartland-Lakeside plan, so that they wouldn't.
So you've never had the insurance here and your family?
The qualification is you have to be, and the language that we use is specific, you have to be enrolled on the Hartland-Lakeside plan for at least 9 months preceding the open enrollment date. Now, what could happen, and what has happened, is people will join for 1 year to bounce back. The savings on this far outweighs some of the cost, right? That additional cost. Because your costs
Because
on
you're eventually losing the cost of the employee's insurance that second year.
Yep.
Then we also anticipate with a plan like this, it is something very different. And sometimes that takes repetition of hearing it, talking to people who have had it.
Sure.
We anticipate each year for that percentage of people that enroll in it to increase.
So I have a district who's going on their 4th year. They're starting open enrollment in a couple weeks. So we'll know what that number is, but I suspect it's going to be higher. But just they're about 1,000 eligible or 1,000 enrolled employees on the plan, right? First year we got 37, then we got 82, then we got 127. And we'll probably be 180 before too long. And it's voluntary. So outside of the other ways to do this, right, are spousal surcharges, which don't feel good, right? Plan design change, network change, dependent eligibility audits, like a lot of those don't feel good. This is one of the rare circumstances where the person is actually, well, I can do nothing and say what I have, or I can do this and save some money. Questions on that? So again, going back to the initial, what we heard as the goals of, we're going through a difficult financial setting, we want minimal disruption to the employees, and we want to enhance benefits where at all possible. This, in our opinion, accomplishes those things. Thoughts?
I have a question on the cheapest option, network health thing. Like what makes Freighter so much cheaper than Pro Health or Aurora? Is this something where they, because it's 2.4 to 1.8, it's 25% less, right? Is this something where they get you in and then they you get everybody to switch to, now all my doctors are Freighter, and now I got all my teachers locked in there, and then they see the 20% increase in 2 years? I mean, I don't understand how it can be so much cheaper. What's the game there?
That's okay. So I can talk about it in a politically correct way or in my cynical way of being in this industry for 20 years. So to answer your question, some of this I would say is absolutely acquisition pricing, right? Where we want to make the transition of, because employees around this area are used to having full access to every system that there is, right? The dominant players for years have been United Healthcare and have been Anthem around here. And even WPS to some extent, Humana when they were still in the group insurance business, to some extent, all the self-funded groups were really about, we need to have choice for everybody, because employers did not want to force, you have to go here, not here. Now, you go 70 miles to the west, and it's a completely different story, because it's hospital-owned insurance companies, which is what network health plan is. So there's a couple things that happen. Number one is they kind of hold on to the risk. So they give themselves the best pricing. So if they look at, it's called a charge master. If you're a, freighter, they're going to give the best commercial pricing to themselves, because they're not going to overcharge themselves for it's money that's staying in-house. And then the rest of it is, it's going to cost a little bit more if you're going through an Anthem plan or you're going through a healthcare plan, because they're negotiating, and those other entities have to make a profit. Whereas network health plan, like a lot of HMOs in the area, Mercy down in Janesville is notorious for this, which they use the insurance as an avenue to get people into the system and that's right. Because that's ultimately what hospitals want. It's kind of like the tail wagging the dog a little bit.
It's like wholesale versus retail pricing in some.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the potential is, because I see this with some of the other HMOs, and I'm not going to put this on network health plan, but I'm talking about the HMOs in the other parts of the state, which are prevalent, right? Like you have courts, you have security, you have Prevea, you have Dean, you have GHC, you have all these. When you get people there, they know the disruption to move away from there. It's not as easy as going from Anthem to United. Okay, so the idea that yes, potentially you start seeing this tick up a bit. The other thing that they want is what all hospitals want is, and if this is too much inside baseball, let me know. But what hospitals ultimately want is they want specialists. They lose money on Medicare and Medicaid. They lose money on uninsured. They have each primary care doc, there's a shortage of primary care docs, and each doc has 2,500 patients. And they get 7 minutes appointment with each of their, per day, right? You get 7 minutes with your PCP. Where they make their money is on the specialist visits, like your derms, your surgeries, your ortho, your oncology, your transplant. Like that's where the profitability that shepherds its way through the entire system comes from. So if they can have a captive group that anytime you have an orthopedic surgery, that $50,000 or $75,000 is staying within there, and it's not being shopped to, maybe Aurora Summit's got a better price, or maybe orthopedic Associates of Wisconsin of 94 has got a better price. So it makes a captive audience, which is kind of what they ultimately want. Does that answer your question?
No, it totally does. I mean, basically, they're locking you into their network. You are at risk for a price increase down the road, at which point all of your employees have theoretically bought into a system that, you know, now you're change disruption if you move away from that in 5 years, and then they get the premium pricing on the higher quality, higher price services.
And it's not to say that that reality has not been the case for the last 25 years, which is one of the reasons why big trends in employer-sponsored health plan has been looking at self-funding, care navigation, stop-loss captives, when you have the ability to understand which system we're going to go to, direct primary care, those types of things to get out of the system. But it's not as easy as it was, and the dollar amounts are huge. And that's one of the things that we've found is that it's a much heavier lift than incenting people off of your plan. Right? But both are needed if you're controlling costs.
Well, I guess they have some, isn't it like Medicare Advantage, which kind of plays a kind of a per head charge for folks? I mean, it's the same idea with the network health, right? I mean, they think if they control your whole health, they can theoretically offer you better outcomes.
Yeah.
They drive down your lifetime health costs.
I mean, that was the history of healthcare, right? Was hey, we're gonna have everything for free, right? You're gonna have no deductibles, no copays. This is your health insurance. You can go to the doctor whenever you want. What did Americans do with free healthcare? They just didn't go to the doctor. So then costs went up, and they go, employers are like, we can't handle this cost increase. So now we're gonna have to charge premiums for it. Now we're gonna have to charge deductibles and copays for this. And then they started going, well, what if we did an HMO instead of a broad network? We're just going to narrow this network down, and we're going to make it free, and we're going to make primary care free. And what Americans do with free primary care? They didn't go to the doctor. So health got worse. And now it just is, there's a lot of these factors that go along with it. The Medicare Advantage piece that's an offline story. I like the idea, but essentially it's a hydraulic system where the more they can control spend and cost on Medicare Advantage, then the higher commercial reimbursements have to get, which is right now what Medicare pays versus what commercial payers pay in the state of Wisconsin is a difference about 315%. So that's part of why I wanted to predict that.
Thank you.
All right.
There was also a question before that you wanted me to look up about
Tier 1 and Tier 2?
Yes, Tier 1, Tier 2 with the Nexus program, and I should put my reading glasses. Don't laugh.
Sorry.
The co-insurance for Tier 1 is actually 0%, but Tier 2 is 30%. Okay, so of every large bill, they're going to be paying 30%. Out-of-pocket maximums from current are $4,000 for single, $8,000 for family. They would go to $6,000 and $12,000 for either tier.
Tier 2 and Tier 3.
What is that? What numbers you just gave us?
That was the Nexus. So that was this Nexus ACO. That would be the 3-tier. So
if we did something like that, we'd just basically be wiping out the raises we just gave the teachers and pushing them over to paying health insurance costs.
if they stayed with ProHealth, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The second half of this is on the non-medical side, which, if you thought health insurance was boring, non-medical is going to put you to sleep. But I think we have a good story. Any questions on the Family Advantage Health Plan, or any questions on the renewal or the UHC options? So you have a good understanding of that. Okay. So the non-medical lines. And when I say non-medical lines, what I'm talking about here is dental, vision, life insurance, disability insurance, and the worksite products, which were accident and critical illness. So when we were hired, one of the things we noticed was you had a lot of different carriers that were handling these. And usually a lot of them are consolidated to one, if not two carriers. You were using MetLife, Delta, Mutual of Omaha, NIS, you were using Standard, NIS, Delta Dental, among the carriers of these various IDs, or not IDs, policies. So one of the things that we wanted to do was take a look at the potential consolidation of these plans to see if there was cost savings or a way to improve benefit, as well as using it as a springboard to get the third part of what we wanted to accomplish, which was increased efficiency for the business office, in place. So we went to several carriers, went to MetLife, Delta, Mutual of Omaha, and looked at what the particular options are. So, I don't know if you can see this. So what we did, the column to the left is current. The second one in shows what the renewal was. And then we have kind of our final two of what we saw as MetLife and Mutual of Omaha. So the way to look at this is the top portion is your employer paid portion. This is what you pay on behalf of your employees. So $24,000 a year for your base life insurance, $19,000 a year for your employer provided long-term disability, $118,000 a year for dental, for a total of $162,000. So the top is an employer contributed, that's money that's coming out of the district. The second column is what the voluntary lines. These are what the employees pay on a voluntary basis for coverages like short-term disability, vision, accident, hospital indemnity, and critical illness. And then give kind of an average of what this comes out to. So the way we're looking at this is your employer paid, if you would have staying as is with the same carriers and the same benefits, you would have gone up, cost would have gone up about $6,000. Okay? MetLife, that total was going to go from $168,000 and $162 current to $132,000. So essentially the same benefit, and it'd be $30,000 less for the district. Okay? And that is on those three lines of coverage: base life, employer-sponsored LTD, and dental. So we looked at Mutual of Omaha with Delta Dental as well. Delta Dental stayed as is at $124,000, but Mutual of Omaha was able to get better pricing on base and base life and LTD for a total of almost $17,000 under current. Okay, so opportunities here. The average cost on the voluntary piece of it is going to see an increase. So we saw the renewal with NIS Standard, Delta Dental, UHC, who had the vision. That was going to go on average. People were spending $14 a month. That was going to go to $14.44. That was going to go to $14.58. Sorry, a week. $14.58. The cost for the plans that we quoted would go up to about $23 a week. So a difference of $8.50 for your average employee. And we'll get into why that is. So there's a couple of them. Hospital indemnity that went up. Big one that came up is the voluntary short-term disability. But the rest of them are around market. So it's coming to about $23. We highlighted this because we think MetLife is the one that we would recommend. What comes along with MetLife is MetLife, one, is able to give us, so the district, about $5,000 a year in an ongoing benefits administration system. So if you've heard of like ADP, you've heard of Paylocity, you've heard of these payroll systems, when you go through open enrollment, it is a single sign-on self-service that houses all employees' information, what they're enrolled in, their dependent information. You can make the changes, you can make one change, and it'll send that information out to all the different carriers. So instead of Becca and Amy and Tina having to go, we've got the report we have to send to MetLife, or not MetLife, Delta, here's a report we have to send to UHC, here's a report we have to send to NIS. It is all done seamlessly, and it also helps out with things like your 1095s, which can be a pain in the butt. They will give you also $1,500 in a one-time system credit to get it up and running. So first year is going to be about $6,500. Ongoing will be an additional $5,000, which is going to cover pretty much the entire cost of the system. So there's no additional cost of the system for the district. In addition, because you have this system, you're now able to offer a voluntary life insurance program, which you couldn't really do before because of the complexities of managing a voluntary life insurance program without a benefit system, because voluntary life insurance programs have age change requirements and income change requirements. It was nearly impossible to do on a Google sheet. So as we looked at this, we said, net cost for year one, net cost for tier two, or year two, go from $168,000 to $125,000 and $127,000 respectively by going to MetLife. The one change would be what some of the weekly average costs are, and again, average is average, on some of these voluntary plans. And I have some detail on that because I think that there are some enhancements that even though it costs more, there's a better product for the employees. Questions on this so far?
Just the quoted, your top line there, is that potential or is that our current usage?
That is premium. So that is what is out the door. Right now, you paid $162,000 for the dental, the base life, and the employer-sponsored LTD. But if you went to MetLife, that number would go to 132, based on the same enrollment that you have. And that is based on total head count because you're paying it for all eligible. It's not, well, we had this many people sign up for it. They automatically get it.
Perfect, thank you.
Question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
On the average, you said.
Yes.
Is that the average as applied to all employees or average to the ones that take advantage of those optional?
All employees. It's an average of the existing employer pay. It's the average of all employees. So it's saying here's what your employee, here's your total census of employees, and if they all enrolled on this given their current age, this is what that would be. But it's not saying that, you know,
If 50 out of the 100 take advantage of those things, that's not what the cost would be. It would be if all 100.
well, but this is not a premium. This is just saying an average person. If I were the average age with the average income here, I would expect to pay $23 a week if I got all of these coverages. But I don't have to choose all or any of these coverages if I don't want.
And is it coming, I don't remember if it's coming later, did you do any analysis based on what employees are purchasing now?
There's a big one that, we do have that information to show, like, and I don't know if I included it in here, but we do have that information. There's a big one that I think is worth discussion on the short-term disability, which is the voluntary short-term disability.
I'm gonna let you keep going, sorry.
Okay. So there's some minor changes. So this doesn't always come with, hey, this is apples to apples, right? So there's some minor changes on the dental plan. So one of the things that has come up on the dental plan is obviously you have a very, very rich dental plan because there's no deductible and it's 100% coverage for all the types 1, 2, and 3, which is your basic to your major to your big major or basic, diagnostic, and your major services. You have an orthodontia benefit, and you have a plan annual maximum of $1,000. So the most the benefit the plan will pay is $1,000. So if someone had $4,000 in dental care, the most that Delta would pay out is $1,000. Okay, and the employee would be on the hook for the other 3. Right? So there's some readjustments to this. One is an introduction of a small deductible. Small deductible annual means $25 for a single, $75 for a family. Okay, so anyone who is familiar with employer, private employer dental plans knows that this is still very, very rich, a small $25, $75 deductible. Okay, once that deductible hit, it's hit annually. And then type 1 is still 100%, but type 2 and type 3 start having a little more cost share to them. So type 2 and type 3 is the plan will pay 80% of type 2, 50% of type 3. It includes orthodontia service, but one of the big changes on this is the plan annual maximum will go up from $1,000 to $1,500. So your high utilizers will get $500 more in dental care per person than they did previously. So although they may have to share in some, billing throughout the course of the year, they have the ability to get more in dental coverage than they had previously with Delta. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit of a give and take.
What are the tier 1, 2, or type 1, 2, and 3?
Type 1 is like cleanings.
Okay.
Type 2 is like endodontics, periodontics. Type 3 is like crowns and bridges.
So basically, you're telling us that $8 a week, employees would have to pay more on average, at least in the dental piece, could lead to $500 more in benefits.
So this is not tied to the $8 a week. This is the dental plan, which is 100% paid by the district. So that, you're paying $118,000 a year right now, that would go to 106. So the employees don't pay a premium for this. They get it for free.
I get that, but it's a way to justify that.
Yes.
It's a way to I mean, if you're saying, if you're telling people that $32 more a month, you're out of pocket for your share. But you got $500 more of dental benefits.
Yeah, if you ever get any type 3 service, it's gonna be probably $3,000.
Right.
2,000, even just use 2,000. Under the current plan, they're only gonna pay $1,000. Under the new plan, they're gonna pay $1,500 of it. So anybody who drops down to that tier 3, where it looks, oh God, they're going from 100% coverage down to 50%, because of the increase in the annual max, it's gonna actually benefit.
I like the way you're thinking about it in terms of the entire package, right? Like, yes, this might cost a little bit more, but here's some opportunity where it's gonna give back to you a little bit. And there's some other elements that I think that if you choose to go this route, that you can still tick on and add more to. Yes, it may cost you a little bit more, but you get this, and this.
You look at the ages, is that how old a dependent can be on there? Is that it? What's the age limit there?
Age limit is for orthodontia. So right now, the age limit is you can't get kid braces if they're over 19. This goes to 26.
Going back to that $8 weekly, is that a diet, like, so you're saying $30,000 savings to the district, $8 a week on the average for an employee. Is that a dial where if we decided to pay more as a district, and so that out of pocket, the savings to us goes from 30 to 20, is a dial, then can you switch that between reduce the employer's portion of their payment? Does that impact pricing?
It's going to impact pricing because the OCI tries to have where insurance companies who offer multiple different lines don't go, we're going to take profit from here to reduce profit or reduce expense here. And the fact that these are voluntary versus employer paid creates a bit of a dynamic change of it. But I think again,
it's not simple. Okay, so
it's not as simple. It's not as simple. I think the thing to keep in mind is that I feel like very, very few, and maybe Amy would know this, of how many people actually enroll in every single line of coverage that you have. Because that $8 is only going to impact the people who are enrolled in every single. They said yes to all of this. So
and the biggest one is the voluntary short term.
And the biggest one is the voluntary short-term disability, which I think that's got a great story. So we'll get to vision. Vision is very, very similar, right? The plan designs are very similar. Vision insurance doesn't change too much from place to place. The only difference here is the rate guarantee is for 4 years. There'd be no rate change for 4 years. And then for frames, it's every 24 months versus 12. But it's about a $2,000 or 20%, 19% difference on this. This is voluntary. People supplement this a lot with their flexible spending accounts or HSA dollars as well. But there's not a lot of change here. Do you have questions on vision before I get to?
Yeah. Your lenses, are those contacts or you can get them 12? So can you get frames, can you get glasses and contacts in the same year?
No. I've never seen it. I've never seen it either. I just, so you're saying that 1 year you get lenses, 1 year you get frames, the next year, I mean, if you're going, because you can't get frames every year. Sure, and there's a way also, so you can only get the frames every other year.
Right.
But if your prescription changes, and if you can get our lenses to fit those existing glasses, they will put them into those. So then the lenses.
Okay, so you're talking lenses in the glasses, not contact
right,
lenses.
There's lenses. Oh yeah, I guess it should have. I actually said contacts also, but contacts also would be once every 12 months.
But you can't get both.
You get frames every other year. You could get, I'm guessing you could get contacts and frames one year, but then the next year you can get frames, but you get rid of contacts.
Contacts, I think that's how it's set up.
2 years down the road.
I mean, I've never
they'll all
seen
get-
that, where you can get both every year.
Yeah, I see it.
Cause I can only get contacts or frames for like $130.
Yeah.
Covers like nothing.
That's,
That's typical insurance.
it's typical vision. That's why the plan designs aren't totally different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bump ahead to the volunteer short-term disability, and I'll go back to the life. So, this is your voluntary short-term disability plan is with NIS. NIS was probably the largest insurer of school districts for these types of coverages. They offer a really unique plan, which you basically can elect in different increments what you want your insured income to be. When you think of insurance protection, or income protection is what short-term disability is. Now, you have sick days and PTO, vacation days, and that sort of thing that you can bank up, and teachers can bank up. But what we have here is this plan says you're going to pay, or they'll pay 66 2/3 of your pre-disability income up to a max of $1,500. But it's incremental, and you get to choose what the increment is. What we found is that on average, people are only insuring 33% of their income. So if you think of someone who's making $52,000 a year, they're making $1,000 a week, they're insuring only $300 a week. And that's an underinsurance, like point blank period. Not many people have that kind. Now maybe if you were making $10,000 a week, you could live on a third of that. But if you're making $1,000 a week, getting $300 or $333, it's probably going to put you in a difficult spot unless you had other things. So the difference here is with MetLife, the people who choose to have this plan, it's voluntary. It's not negotiable what your benefit is. Your benefit is 60% to a max of $1,500. So you're going to get 60% of your income if you enroll here. So yes, it's going to cost you on average, going from $6 to $10, which is half of that $8 change. But you're going to go from 30% income replacement to 60. So it's an improvement in its protection of the people. So when we talk about, it's going up $8 and some odd cents a week, that's where the lion's share of that's coming from, is an improvement to the overall plan. Questions on that?
Do we know how many in the district are taking advantage of voluntary short?
24 are currently enrolled. 22 to 24 have under 60% coverage, and the average of those 22 is 33%. So you have people who are under.
Is this maternity? Okay. So this is what they would use to supplement. Sorry, I don't know
Yes,
those parts. So I know there's a lot of pregnant teachers this year.
Teachers are very good at banking their sick hours, so they try to get as far as they can. But as Matt said, a lot of them, if they wanted that higher level, they have to fill out a form of evidence of insurability, and they can be denied.
Okay.
So in this, they're getting to 60% without having to fill out that
Okay,
form.
and so this would kick in for maternity leave? Okay.
The thing about this as opposed to NIS is NIS was notorious for a couple things. One was they had these 90% income replacement plans, if you kind of remember back there, but they were always taxed or they were super expensive. And the other thing they allowed was this offsets. Offset is essentially, are we going to reduce your insurance amount based on what other income you have coming in? So the offset here says, hey, when you max out and play around with your PTO, your sick time, and this benefit time, the combination of those two is not going to exceed 100% of your pre-disability earnings. NIS didn't have that, which meant that for a lot of other districts, people would get their sick time, and they get on top of that, the disability, and they would routinely make 150 to 160% of their pre-disability earnings while on disability, because they would double dip. And then what ends up happening from that perspective, from an insurance perspective, is there's no incentive to come back to work. So a 6-week disability, and not excluding maternity, but a 6-week disability may magically turn into a 26-week disability, because why would someone come back? And what happens is it hits your MLR goes into your renewal, and your renewal goes, we lost a bunch of money, so we gotta increase your premium by 40%. And it's a cycle that continues. So it's a change, but it caps people out at 100%. Okay. Basic life, really not much changing on this. This is what employer pays. It's a one-time annual earnings to a max of 100,000. All of it is guaranteed issue. The age reduction schedule's a little bit different. It reduces at 65 as opposed to reduces at 70. So there's a little bit of a change there. But for the most part, it's a very, very similar program. It just costs less than half of what NIS was charging. Is this helpful to go through all these in detail?
Yes. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay. The next one is long-term disability, and this is one that the district pays for. So this dovetails because both of them are going to be on the same carrier. They dovetail, and short-term disability claims managers will talk to the long-term disability claims managers, so there's a nice transition. It's not two separate systems feeding into each other. So what you have is you had I would say, somewhat unique benefit maximum, where it was 90% income replacement that you were paying for. That's taxable. That would be to $13,500. And then that's the first 6 months, and after that, it drops down to the taxable 75% to $11,250. This kind of a little bit different because you don't have a ton of people who are going to be hitting those caps. This on MetLife is 60% to 10,000. And Dave and Amy, correct me. This price, did we gross that up, or that was a conversation piece?
It was a conversation piece.
So right now, this would be a taxable benefit, but it would insure for people essentially up to 60%, up to 10,000. That's it's 8 o'clock or whatever right now. My brain can't do math, but a couple hundred grand, right, is what we're looking at. But it's a 90-day elimination period as opposed to 60, which means that you have to be disabled for 90 days as opposed to 60, but it works with the short-term disability, which goes for the 90 days, right? So this would kick in a little bit sooner. We could make this a tax-free benefit by grossing up imputed income. That's more of a payroll function, but basically saying, hey, if I want to insure and it's going to cost me $30 a month, I'm going to pay tax on a phantom $30 a month increase so that the benefit becomes tax-free. That's a different conversation, but it's one that if you wanted to extend this a little bit longer, you could. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into this, but again, this is, more savings. You're covering and insuring 60% of people's income up to $10,000 of benefit per month. Questions? All right. I'm not going to go through all of these, but there was some information that we couldn't find. But the last couple of these are your worksite programs. Worksite are accident, critical illness, and hospital indemnity plans. These are like the AFLAC plans, right? So they don't reimburse an expense like insurance does. They give you a set dollar amount based on what you incurred. The biggest thing about this is that you can see the benefits here are as good or better than what the standard was currently offering. The biggest change, though, is this very top one, wellness screening benefit. It goes from $50 to $100. So you can get $100 if you enroll on this by getting a wellness screen. And Dave does dental cleanup count as a wellness screen.
Oh, yes, it does.
So a wellness screen, thank you, Dave. So a wellness screen, someone who enrolls in all this, now all of a sudden can get, they automatically, they're all with MetLife, they can get $100 on the accident, $100 on a critical illness, and $100 on the hospital indemnity plan. Because that's the way they have the plan set up. So right now you had it $50, the standard was $50. Now we got $100 wellness screening benefit. And then also improvement to certain coverage. So that's the accident. We have critical illness, which right now your people are capped at 20,000. MetLife's cap is 50,000. It covers more things. You can see here the major conditions. That's what standard currently covers. This is what the new one covers. So not only do people get more, but they get more things to be covered. And hospital indemnity is, again, daily confinement is about the same, except you get, instead of 15 days of hospital ICU, you can get 30 days of ICU, you can get 90 days of hospital confinement at $100 a clip, so that's a lot better. And again, the $100 wellness benefit as opposed to 75. So enhancements all over. And the reason we put all of these in here too is it allows MetLife to pay $3.75 per employee per month to cover the cost of the Employee Navigator system, which is going to be the lifeblood, work with Skyward. It's going to be able to house all of the enrollments, make make employees self-service, so they can go on and enroll in the comfort of their own homes. They can do all that, and it'll automatically feed to the different insurance carriers.
Is that program like a off-the-shelf kind of thing that gets implemented quickly, or does it take a long implementation time?
We have already begun some of this process, waiting for the org. So we plan on having this ready to go by open enrollment.
Okay, thank you.
So here's kind of where we are. That was a lot. I told myself I'd only talk for about 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's never.
First slide?
No, so we have a lot of stuff that's here. Essentially, obviously, there's a couple things that you probably need to approve, which is health plan, family advantage health plan, what to do with MetLife, employee navigator. Am I missing anything, Amy?
I think that's it. That's what I have at least.
I apologize for taking as long as I did, but you were asking some really good questions.
What's your guys' role in open enrollment versus Amy and Tina's in terms of educating? I mean, it sounds like it's minimal disruption from what they currently have, but like how does open enrollment work with the staff?
Yep. So our role is a couple things. One is working with all the carriers, either current and potential new carriers. We have already been working with our communications team and developing brand new communication pieces. We have a microsite ready to go that is going to be a single site via QR code that will talk about all the changes. We will help build the Employee Navigator system. We have a benefit guide that is in final steps of approval right now. We have things to say, open enrollment's coming, open enrollment's here, open enrollment's ending. We will help coordinate all of that, and if you guys want me to take a bunch of teachers' time and talk their ear off, I could be talked into something like that. But that's where our role. That's our role. But it should be a pretty simple open enrollment. If hey, we stick with UHC, we have things just for the Family Advantage Health Plan that are specific to the Family Advantage Health Plan that is for employees and for managers if you want that.
But that's the one that just seems like, that's the new change, and obviously that's the one that could lead to material savings for us. So it seems like the more we can do to educate the staff on what that looks like.
Oh yeah, and I've sent Amy and Becca a whole ton of communications.
Dave has been a saint as we ask for more and more. We are going to go meet with staff next week. We have, based on your decision tonight, an email ready for tomorrow to send to staff to let them know open enrollment is coming, we're coming to their buildings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we've already talked to the principals, to meet with them to go over a PowerPoint that Dave is helping us put together. And then if they have questions, they have a couple days to ask those questions before open enrollment actually starts. Open enrollment is about 2 weeks, so even if they have questions during that process, they can still reach out to any of us, and then we have them as support. So hopefully, with all of those things, it will go as smoothly as possible.
And we've done live webinars on just the Family Advantage Health Plan as well, that
I actually have a video of it
yeah,
that I've given to them. They can, so it's administered by a third party called BCC, and if they want to reach out directly to them, they actually have contact numbers where they can call them directly. So there's
Perfect.
a lot
I
of
appreciate
support.
it, it's clear there's a lot of thought that went into this and a lot of analysis and research to get a good solution, so I appreciate all the work.
So Amy, is it looking like there has to be different approvals for each thing, or is there a package?
I think you can package it at this point. What I had written beforehand was that we would like to keep United Healthcare with the 12.5 increase, and then move vision, dental, and the other non-medical to MetLife. And then that would roll into those other pieces.
And just a reminder, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is actually gonna be less than what we have in our initial budget for
Yes.
health insurance increase.
Yes.
So this is within budget, it's actually.
And that's before Family Advantage.
And that's before, yes, so right now, my budget, Matt and Chris know, it was based on a 15% increase across the board, so that's what everyone kind of saw in that plan that I brought in April. I haven't even put some of these changes other than the 12.5, because there will be additional savings potentially across the board. And again, it just depends on what people enroll in, which we won't know unfortunately until really June.
And I think an important thing to point out too is the Family Advantage Plan is not a one-year static enrollment. You want to have it set up where if someone's spouse doesn't go through their open enrollment until October or January 1st, that they would enroll maybe 7 months in your plan and then move halfway through the year.
Okay, so again, the communications will say that. If you think you're interested, talk to HR, make sure you're eligible. Talk to your spouse's HR department to make sure that you can move people onto their plan at this time. Like Matt said, if you can't now, we have to wait till their open enrollment.
Yep.
Because it's not really a loss. It's
No.
not, it's not.
It's not a
it's done.
qualifying medical.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Oh, sure. Can you read my review? Did you have another question?
I did. So for the Family Advantage Plan, is that something that the administration would be communicating?
Yes, so part of the presentation that Dave is helping us put together at this time and his team, it does have that in there. I'm assuming there will be additional questions, which is why Dave has those other pieces. So as people come to us, our presentation to the staff is obviously somewhat short because it's before school starts, but if they have additional questions, they're invited to come visit us, set up individual appointments. We have videos and additional documents to share at that time. Also, the microsite, which we have not had in the past, will have all of this information available too.
I just wondered because I feel like that has, like Matt said, that has the biggest possibility to move the needle. If people take advantage of it.
Yep, and a lot of that is on,
It's a lot of value to them too.
it's all on communication.
Right.
And it
Communication,
doesn't add
education.
any cost to us to offer that?
The way we built it was, and it's a homegrown product of ours, the way we built it was to have minimal hurdle for someone to say yes to it. So if no one takes it, you pay nothing for it. As opposed to other, that would cost a PT on it. You gotta hope that you get enough people in order to break even.
Yeah, the fees are based off of the savings.
Yeah.
That's how
And does that become taxable income to them, getting the?
the $50 would be a payroll bonus, right? $50 per person per month would be a payroll bonus. The reimbursements of deductibles, copays, and coinsurance would be under Section 105H of the IRS code, and therefore not subject to taxes.
And that would, so even if they wouldn't use any of their money out of pocket, you were talking about it like a card?
No,
So they couldn't claim like FSA money?
No, so unlike traditional FSA or something like that, where let's say, and under this plan, I have a $10,000 family deductible.
Yeah.
Right? In the traditional HRA, I would have to pay that and then wait for the bill to be reimbursed.
Yeah.
With this program, we got rid of that, so we have a debit card that's preloaded with the ACA maximums on it. So when you get your EOB, you can pay directly from the debit card. And that would
It's obviously, I mean, if they're not able to use the debit card at that time, forget to use the debit card, they can submit claims, very simply.
I'm just trying to think of any tax implication with like deductions for medical expenses and such that people might be using like that 7.5% deduction on their taxes, but now they wouldn't have those medical expenses because we're paying them up to.
Yeah, they're having no now they could have
Over
network,
yeah.
They could have, they could have things that are considered medical but not, some over-the-counter pieces to it or something like that. But this is meant to pay 100%.
Ready for motion?
Oh.
If there's no other discussion or questions, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to keep United Healthcare plan as presented with the 12.5% increase, as well as move our vision, dental, and other non-medical benefits to MetLife as presented.
Can you go back to move? I'm trying to write it.
Vision, dental, and other non-medical benefits to MetLife as presented.
All right, so we have a motion on the table for Matt to keep the UHC as the provider with the 12.5% increase, and then move vision, dental, and other non-medical benefits as presented to MetLife.
Second that.
Do we need to include implementing the Family Advantage health plan?
Essentially, you want to amend it? I don't know the rules. I never get it right.
I don't know the rules.
You guys read your book?
I can't read the book. You got last week?
So it depends. Does the motion, maybe this is a question for Matt.
Let's just make a second motion to do that.
And you may just hold on, you may not need to. So this is a clarification. If everything was moved as stated over to MetLife, is that Family Advantage health plan rolled underneath that, or that is a separate?
Separate organization.
Okay. So then to answer your question, the motion would need to be amended to include that if that was the desire of someone. Or that could be voted down in a new motion.
How would we just amend?
Pardon?
So we should motion to amend, adding the Family Advantage health plan.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion to amend the first motion to include the Family Advantage health plan? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carried to amend the first motion to include the Family Advantage health plan. We are now back on the original motion, which is to keep UHC as presented with a 12.5% increase, move vision, dental, and other non-medical benefits as presented to MetLife and include the Family Advantage health plan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. We're into, Amy, did you have anything else that you need from the board?
No, that's it.
All right,
Thank you.
moving on, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Great stuff, thank you. Wow, it's big stuff.
as insurance can be.
You're not gonna stay for the rest?
What's that?
You're not gonna stay for the rest?
Want me to? I got opinions.
There's more.
All right, we're on to future meetings. Finance committee meeting originally was scheduled for
Thanks, all.
May 9th
Thank you, guys.
at 9 AM.
Thank you.
But there's new committee members now, so. You want to keep
I'm
that?
great. But I do have to walk with kindergarten at 9:45 to the library, so.
Oh.
I think it's 9:45. Do you know, Chris, what time the kids walk to the library? You don't know when Gemma's walking?
Michaela handles that part.
Must be nice.
Yeah, and what time do you usually get here in the morning? Usually go
Yeah,
earlier?
I can be, I don't have to do
Oh, I
this.
can be here early. So whatever works for you.
How long are the meetings normally?
Usually around an hour.
Oh, then yeah, I mean, 8:45, 8:30.
8:30?
Yeah, 8:30 would be great.
So this Friday at 8:30 AM.
Yes.
Friday, May 9th?
That's
Correct.
8:30. All right. PPC committee. Policy, personnel, and curriculum. Matt and Chris.
What's your real?
I'm flexible in the mornings.
What has worked best in the past?
Tina can usually be here by 8:30. If that works.
Maybe it works better.
I do 8:30 any day of the week besides Tuesday.
Next week, Wednesday.
14th, that works.
So Wednesday, May 14th. At 8:30?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next is the reminder of the board workshop on our next meeting, May 19th. It starts at 5:30 and then followed by the regular board meeting at 6:30 PM. Also to note, there is a district-wide assembly meeting this Thursday at Arrowhead campus to discuss the collaboration of districts. There's also an educational component that will include financial 101s for districts led by Jeff Roche. And then the superintendent, Ron Russ will be presenting on the costs, benefits, and procedures of consolidation of districts. So that'll happen at 6:30 PM Thursday night if you're invited, if you are.
Do you have any email or information about that, or
I can
that
forward
you
you
may
what
have
was-
forwarded to the
I
previous?
can, yeah, it was sent out, I think Kim Schubert sent it out this morning.
Oh, yeah, I would
Different boards, so I
love
don't know
to
if you
see
got
that.
that.
Nope,
If not, I
didn't
can
get anything.
forward that to you.
Send it around everybody if you got one.
Yeah, I'll just forward it out to the rest of the board. I won't be able to make that one, but if you guys can, it's over. And I think it's gonna be held in the library A room again.
Where it was.
That's but it'll be in the email, so just as a reminder that you're invited to that. Okay. We are at adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn at 8:20 PM.
Second.
All right, motion to adjourn at 8:20 PM. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
You made it.
Really?
Other meetings? I mean, I've been good, but
Usually.